Welcome to Do Not Go Quiet.
Here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. And nobody can hang with my stuff.
With Eric Wilson.
There's a big, hairy American winning machine.
First form knockdown champion, right? I want deets, man.
Yeah, I call it, I guess, because they were going back and forth on the name. It'd be I'm the winner of the 1stPhorm November Knockdown Finals.
Okay. So how did that whole thing roll? I remember you telling me that it was like you had to submit everything online, right? And then there was an in-person finals?
Yeah, there was like a online qualifier. You win a week and you got a automatic bid to come compete in the finals. And then we had no idea what we were really competing for because they didn't tell us ahead of time. They just
What'd you have to do to qualify?
There were some workouts they posted. Like one of them was like week 1 was like 15 burpees. You shot an arrow at 20 yards and you did that for 4 rounds. And whoever was the fastest, you win the workout. And then week 2, it was like some more stuff like that, like some really pretty simple body weight stuff, some really simple stuff for pretty much everyone has access to do at home. Because there was really, if you have a bow, besides that, there's really no real large equipment, hurdle to get over.
But it was like you had to do more than one submission. You had to do something every week.
Yeah, there was 4 weeks. You didn't have to do all 4 weeks, I guess. I didn't do all 4 weeks. I won a week. So like I had the best in week 3. So I didn't have to, I didn't have to do week 4
Gotcha.
because I had already won week 3. It wasn't like a cumulative across all the weeks. It was just, hey, win a week and you get a bid.
Okay. So then they had the finals, last weekend in St. Louis? And it was in person?
Yeah, it was on Friday. There was a total of 10 people that were there to compete. It was 5 people that won the 4 weeks because one of the weeks, 2 individuals tied. And then they had like their like community invite, like people that competed in all the weeks that kind of embody the 1stPhorm outdoors, like, what they want to see, that like who that person is. Someone who's energetic about being outside, participating, working out, health and fitness is a priority. And so they invited some of those people. And it made a total of 10 of us competing for what ended up being a $10,000 payday and a 1 year. Well, I guess I am the first 1stPhorm outdoors pro staff athlete.
So you made 10 grand?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So what did that get? Was it 2 days? It was Friday and Saturday, or what was it?
The competition was just Friday.
And what did y'all have to do?
Oh man, a lot. So like the workouts for the qualifier were really, we'll call it 4-minute and under workouts. They were really quick, high turnover, not a lot of grinding it out work involved. As long as you can go hard for a few minutes, that's those kind of workouts.
And what, that happened like Friday morning? Like you had to
No, that was the qualifier. That was just to get there. That's what we did back in November. On Friday, they really Jake Arvold, who he's like the brainchild behind 1stPhorm Outdoors and this whole competition. He made us how to work. He drug us through the mud. First workout was, so we had a 30-pound ruck, like a Go Ruck backpack. We were out at one of the owner of the company's his farm.
Was Go Ruck there?
Go Ruck wasn't there. I mean, they had equipment there, but
it was their stuff.
Yeah, it was their stuff.
Okay.
So we took this 35-pound pack, 30-pound pack, ran 0.6 of a mile around a pond through and it's not like running on the street or running on like really good trails. It was literally running through like cut fields. So it was very uneven
running with
terrain.
a 30-pound pack just by itself. I did a Go Ruck that was I think it was Go Ruck heavy. It was like 24 hours or something. But I mean, we were like rucking. Like I can't imagine running with a 30-pound pack, and then you put it out in the middle of a field. Like that's you're jacked before you ever get going.
100%. It definitely wasn't. Running is not a thing that I'm like good at to begin with. It's not that I'm not good at it. It's just years of tire changing have not been nice to my knees per se. So
Imagine.
it's not something that I
Yeah.
like. It's just not something that I kind of like really. I don't seek to do it out a lot. There's a lot of other low impact, cardio options that I have. So I usually, gear myself towards those.
Yeah,
Just for
I'm the
general,
same way.
just for general fitness. And then running is kind of one of those things I feel like you can have good cardio, but if you're not like running conditioned, it really just kind of sucks the wind out of you.
I was going to say
literally and figuratively.
If you're not like that's a big max VO2 thing, like if you're not pushing your heart rate really, really high all the time. And the other thing too about running that I think, because I used to do triathlons and stuff, the first 3/4 of a mile sucks worse than the 5th mile. So like going out like that, if you're doing 6/10 of a mile with a pack, like that's probably the worst part of a 5-mile run right there.
Yeah. So that was like part one.
So you start there.
So it was 6/10 of a mile ruck around this pond. You came back and we got to your station. We had to do 15 burpees. After you get done with those 15 burpees, you shot one arrow at, I want to say the yardage was like 35 yards. Mm-hmm. And the target we're shooting at is it's just that generic, the big morel targets, like the bag targets. Mm-hmm. They have the center bullseye in the middle of them.
Right.
So depending on where you hit on the target, you either took time away from your total score or you added time to your total score, your complete workout time. So inside of that, like inside the yellow, they have the 10 ring. If you hit the 10 ring, you get 10 seconds minused off your time. Mm-hmm. If you hit the ring just outside of it, 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, when you count the rings out. And then if you missed the bullseye on the target, but you still hit the target, it added 30 seconds to your workout. And if you missed the target completely, it added a minute to your workout.
So this whole thing is essentially a race.
Yeah.
The whole thing's a time thing. Is that right?
Yes. So they had, there was there was 4 workouts, but those workouts were broken up in, you had the 4 fitness components part of it. Like you got scored on your workout for your total time, how long it took you to complete all of this work. And then the way your arrows scored, that was also a score that counted. So there was 8 total scored events that created the spectrum of points that you could earn in the weekend. The lowest amount of points you accumulate is better. More points you accumulate, worse. Like first you get 1 point, 10th you get 10 points. That kind of scale.
Gotcha.
So the round 1 of the first workout was the 6/10 of a mile run around the pond, the 15 burpees, shoot 1 arrow. Once you're done with that, you put your pack back on, you go back out on a run, you do another 6/10 around this pond again, come back. Then
I'm picking up the vibe at this point.
Yeah, it's 20 air squats. And then once you get done with those 20 air squats, we shot 2 arrows, same target. Once you get done with the arrows, you put your pack back on, you slug back around that pond 1 more time. There was not as much running the 3rd time as there was the first 2 times.
A lot more rucking, I would imagine, at that point.
We'll call it power walking.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it was flat or down, we were running. When it was up, we were power walking because I could walk almost faster than I could run at that point.
I've always thought it's really hard to run with a weighted ruck. Did they give you like waist belts for those things, or were they just bouncing around on your back when you're trying to run?
They were just it's just like, I can't describe it. It's just this generic Go Ruck backpack. It's like that really thick, like canvas material.
Yeah, it's like
no
Cordero.
Waist belt. Yeah,
I've got one of those. Like I kind of use that as my everyday, just like throw it in the truck thing. And if I actually went out this weekend and did like a 4.5, 5 mile ruck, and I did this hill like 5 times, But if you try, like I tried to run with it just a little bit, and the thing was bouncing all over my back. It's definitely not ideal for running.
No, so it bounced all over the place. And for me to mitigate the bouncing, to kind of like save my shoulders and traps and just, generic fatigue over the day, I cinched it down about as tight as I could, and then it was hard to breathe. So you try to loosen it up a little bit.
And then you're trying to shoot your bow, like
Oh,
after you're smoking your traps from having that thing jack around on your, shoulders as you run.
yeah. The worst part, my shoulders actually survived the weekend very well. It's something that, like, changing tires in NASCAR, like I have really good shoulder health, and I'm constantly very conscious of taking care of my shoulders, so that wasn't a major concern for me. But the bottom of the backpack sat just above my waist belt. It took layers of skin off, like layers of skin.
Your shirt was like
So-
riding up underneath the pack, or was it just rubbing you over the top of your shirt?
Both. It rode up a little bit, and I could feel it immediately. So I like pulled my shirt down, and I didn't just tuck it into my shorts. I tucked it like into my underwear because I was like, I don't want this to move. But the damage, I think, had already been done, and then just the constant just back and forth of the sandbags, just shifting a little bit in there, and just the running. I'm not like the greatest technical runner, anyways.
They weighted them with sandbags.
Yeah,
because GoRuck makes these plates that
they make like a metal plate. Yeah,
right. That evenly distributes across the backpack. But if you throw a sandbag in there, the entire weight of the bag is sitting in the bottom.
Correct.
So they were like, okay, we're going to make this as hard as physically possible.
I don't know if they tried like intentionally made it that way, or if it was just a product of, hey, we have these. And the sandbags were like, you know how you get like a dry bag, you can fill it up. It's got like a roll top and it clips together.
Mm-hmm.
They were like that. So I don't know if it was just a product of like, hey, we already have this stuff. We're not going to go, get the plates from GoRuck. Like I know they have those plates, but we definitely did not have those plates. So that was, so we'll go back to the beginning. Workout one, it was that 0.6 of a mile loop, 15 burpees, shoot an arrow. Round two of that was you went straight into a 0.6 of a mile loop, 20 air squats, shoot 2 arrows, and then you go back out for your third run. It's 0.6 of a mile loop, and then you came in, did 30 push-ups, and then shot 3 arrows. At the release of your last arrow, when it hits a target, then your score for that workout is over. That was, I think, for everybody, it was like a 20 to 28 minute workout. It was just long. There's nowhere to really hide in the workout because the majority of the workout, honestly, is running, it's rucking. It's traversing this pack over this range. The burpees, the air squats, and the push-ups, the volume wasn't really. It was just something you had to do. It wasn't even annoying. It was just
it was one more thing to kind of push your heart rate up before they made you shoot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to do basically 4 rounds of stuff like that, right? And then at the end of the day, you got a point total, and that's how they determine the winner.
Yeah, they did 4 separate workouts. We did 2 before lunch, 2 after lunch. That all of that was workout number 1, and that kind of just set the precedent for the weekend or for the day that, hey, this is gonna suck. And it's about being fast. It's about being accurate, but it's also about being just smart and knowing where to push and knowing what you can do to like help yourself out and what you can do to like maybe mitigate your weaknesses.
How did you shoot when it was time for you to shoot?
I thought I shot really well. I kind of have this, like, when I get into competitions like this, like just from being in competitive atmospheres all the time, I know I do better when I focus on myself and what I'm doing, and I'm not really paying too much attention to what other people are doing. So I really focused on like how I shot my arrows. I focused on me in the workout. Like I wasn't really paying too much attention to who was around me or like, oh, I have to go catch this person or I can't let this person pass me. I just focused on like, hey, I'm going to push as hard as I can go. And wherever I kind of settle out, that's where I settle out. So I didn't pay as much attention to like how other people were shooting, but I just kind of had a general like, because we were in lanes, so your target's like right, you have target on the right of you and the left of you. I could kind of glance over and be like, okay, Clint shot pretty good here, or okay, Brandon shot pretty good here, or Brandon didn't shoot good, or Clint didn't shoot good. Like you kind of like look at it and you're like, okay, I shot a really good group compared to some other people, but other people shot good groups as well. So it was kind of like it was hard to pay attention to all of it. I just tried to focus on what I was doing. But for me, particularly, like I shot about as well as I thought I could have. There's only really one arrow that I kind of want back. But I don't think at the end of the day, it really hurt me too bad. It's just, man, like you're used to the pin floating a little bit. And when your heart rate's jacked like that, like the pin's like all over the place. And you're like, oh my God, just settle, please.
Were you shooting your Matthews or did you shoot the Elite?
I shot the Elite. I had both of them with me. It was kind of one of those things like I have both bows. I have a double bow case. I'm going out there to compete in something. The worst thing that I can think of is like me falling and something happening and then not having a bow to shoot. So I was like, I might as well bring it. I brought them both. I've just been shooting that Elite a little bit more. So I felt a little bit more confident in like the sight tape and just the way like overall the feel of the bow.
Yeah, that makes sense. What sight were you running on that?
I have an HHA Tetra sight with a UltraView UV scope, the small one.
Are you running a single pin or are you running a 3-pin on that?
So for this, I ran a single pin, only
sense.
for the reason of I can dial to the like shooting well matters.
Yeah.
So being able to dial to the exact yardage, hey, if I get to a target and it's 48 yards, I can dial to 48 yards. I don't have to kind of like hold my pin a little higher, a little low. I don't have to pin gap. So I could be a little bit more accurate with that. And it's one less thing that I have to think about in that moment, in that competition setting. Like, hey, I only have to put this one pin that's in the scope on the target. Coming from shooting out or not out indoor all winter long, I got really used to just looking at one pin, not having to worry about anything else. So I just wanted to keep that consistency kind of up through this competition. And then now I'll start to switch and go to a multi-pin housing to kind of get ready for hunting season.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just ordered that. I basically took your advice. I ordered that HHA, the 4-pin, but I got it customized. I did a 3-pin and I did a 0.19 on the top two and a 0.10 on the bottom one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
my bow ever comes in, it'll be nice to shoot it.
It'll come in. It'll come in.
Matthews, if you're listening, I can't wait to shoot this thing. But I mean, come on, bro. It's been a grind waiting for this baby.
Oh yeah, I've been there. The COVID years were a little rough too, trying to get bows.
I can't even
when they first came out,
like during COVID.
It just crazy. I mean, like everything else, it just kind of got backed up.
Yeah. Well, so you get this whole thing done. You win. You're like their first big winner. And then from there, do you go straight to Talladega on Saturday? Because you like what is that? Were they qualifying Saturday?
Yeah. So I didn't have to be there until Sunday. Okay. So that like the timing of this whole competition and the NASCAR schedule and what race it actually is that weekend, like it could not have worked out any more perfect than it did, because I didn't have to be to the racetrack till Sunday. The 1stPhorm challenge was on.
Yeah. Why didn't, just out of curiosity, why didn't you have to be there until, because you used to have to be there, or normally you have to be there early, right?
So normally I would pit the Xfinity series on Saturday, which is like the AAA of the in the NASCAR schedule. It is, or the hierarchy of it. There's the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, the trucks, and it just kind of works its way down to like the local level from there. I usually do pit the Xfinity Series, but knowing that I was probably not going to be in the greatest physical condition on Saturday after, abusing myself on Friday, and the added stress of just making sure the travel, because it was so tight, I opted to not go to that race and just have one of our backups pit it for me. It's not a I'm contracted to pit everything on Sundays. Saturdays are kind of one of those like, hey, we want you to do those races, but if something comes up, like you have something going on, it's not the end of the world if I were to miss one.
Who does qualifying? I guess I just kind of assumed that y'all were at qualifying.
So the way that the NASCAR like teams work in NASCAR, we call them A teams and B teams, or road crews and pit crews.
Okay.
It's not like the A team is better than the B team. It's just the A team is the team. It's the group of guys that go to the racetrack, that are the mechanics that get the car set up. They're the ones that do all of the practice, qualifying, getting it through tech inspection. They do all of that work. And then us, the pit crew, we're the B team. We come in on Sunday, and all we do is service the car during the race. We pit it. We don't do any of the work on Saturday or Friday for the qualifying or practice.
So that's interesting. I mean, y'all are on a pretty good roll right now. I think, like, I watched the race yesterday, and I think you won Vegas a little while ago. You won Phoenix. You came in 5th at Coda, and then yesterday y'all took 7th. I was like, at a certain point, you were out of the top 20. And I was
we're at the top 20 for a while.
For a long time. Like,
yeah.
End of the first, I think maybe it was the whole second stage, end of the second stage, beginning of the third stage. And then what happened that you were able to get back up there?
So, like, to your point, we've had a really good season. We won 2 races this year. We won Phoenix and Vegas, and we finished or have run up front in almost every race this year. We haven't really had a race that's been like a really bad, like, hey, we missed it, we're no good, which is just a testament to like how good Hendrick Motorsports is this year and how good of cars they're putting out there, because our teammate Kyle Larson has also won 2 races, and Alex Bowman's been running up front all year. It's only a matter of time before he knocks the door down. And now we have Chase Elliott back, and he proved first week back in the car at Martinsville last week that he can run top 10. So,
and you're only 23 points out of top 10 right now, right? Y'all are in 14th.
Yeah, I mean, we're there because we got levied some penalties earlier in the year. So
I'm saying you should be higher.
We should be. If we would probably be second in points right now if it wasn't for the 60-point penalty we got levied a couple weeks ago.
What was that?
It's a whole nother conversation.
Okay. We'll table that one for a different day. So I think this is an interesting story, right? You're a northern guy, a northern kid, who ended up down in the South on a pit crew in NASCAR. And to me, that's a really interesting story. And I know you're into cars growing up, but how did that whole thing happen?
Man, it's like your parents always tell you when you're growing up, yo, you can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want to be, like the kind of generic, the sky's the limit, right? And for me growing up, my dad had always brought me to the racetrack as a little kid. And it was like, as long as I can remember, I've been going to the racetrack in Connecticut at these little short tracks and just absolutely loved it. And it kind of got to the point where I had a friend in high school who had a race car. So I started helping him out, and I started getting a little bit more involved. And the more involved I got, it just kind of snowballed, and it turned into one of those things that I guess you would call it an obsession, or just like a really dedicated passion. And I just started helping him out, which led to helping other people out, which led to helping the top level team we had in Connecticut at the time, where they were touring to a bunch of different states to race. And that was just like the big step. Like, you're not just doing the same thing every Saturday night at your local short track. We were actually going to Hickory, North Carolina, Lime Rock, Connecticut. We were going to Watkins Glen in New York, Dover, Delaware. We were traveling around and racing at some of these big tracks. And that was kind of my first like foot in the water that like, hey, people do this. Someone has to do this for a living. All the people I've seen race on TV. What's that?
Somebody's getting paid to do this.
Yeah, somebody's getting paid to do it. Someone has to do it. And it was kind of one of those like, why not me things. I got to a point in my life. I was in college and I was flunking out of college. I was on academic probation, And it wasn't because I'm not like, I couldn't do the work, or it's not because I'm not smart and I didn't understand it. It was just, I was not doing the work because I was skipping class to go to the racetrack, or I was skipping class to go work on the race cars.
Honestly,
And
that's when I know like people that happens to. I mean, I've got an older son who, he just didn't want to be there,
yeah,
and it was kind of like this expectation in the family, like, hey, that's kind of what you do, and he just didn't want to be there. It's not for everybody.
yeah, it just, it wasn't for me. I'm way better building things. I don't like sitting down and like doing work. I would much rather be outside swinging a hammer, mowing the grass, building something, working on something, problem solving something, than studying and, becoming, I guess,
You're
more
not
intellectually like deep,
you're not good at being still.
No, not at all. No, that, like, my sister, she's in college again. She goes to Harvard. That is her. She has all of that. She has the time for it, the passion for it, the patience for it. I don't. It's not a bad thing. I saw an opportunity where I was going to have to leave college, whether I wanted to or not, and I had to do something. So I was like, I'm going to move to North Carolina. I'm going to pack everything I have up in this 10-passenger van, and I'm going to give racing a shot. I didn't know what I was going to be doing, whether I was going to be pitting race cars or working on them, being a mechanic, but I knew I wanted to be involved in NASCAR in some capacity, because I don't feel like when I'm working on race, like, I don't feel like I ever have to go to work when I'm working on cars. Like when I'm working on race cars or just being in the sport, it's just something I like. I'm like very fortunate that I get to do that. So packed everything up, 21 years old, moved to North Carolina. There was a pit school in Mooresville. It's called the Pit School, actually. It's Performance Institute and Training, I think. Don't quote me on it, but essentially what they do, it's an 8-week program where they teach you how to do all the stuff when it comes to pitting race cars. They teach you how to change tires. They teach you how to carry tires, jack, and gas. And from there, they give you that is like your pit stop 101. It is the basic bare bones choreography, just the kind of the do's and the don'ts. But there is a lot that you need to master after that. And I did that program and then spent the next probably 9 or 10 months just trying to get better at my craft and hustle and get any opportunity I could.
I was gonna say, during that time, were you working like every different skill? Like, were you working the jack? Were you working tires? Were you working gas? Or did you kind of know coming out of that school that you were going to be a tire guy?
My body type, I could have gone either anyway. Like a lot of guys kind of by their body type, by their size, their weight, their athleticism, they kind of get classified into being, if you're 5'9" and 160 pounds, you're most likely going to be a tire changer. Mm-hmm. If you're 5'10" to 6'2", 200, 215, you're probably going to be either a tire carrier or a jack man. And if you're like a, 6'4", 250, freak athletic, you're probably going to be a gas man, because at the time and now, gas men, they have to be just so athletic to move the weight around, and the speed they have to do it now is more demanding than ever. So you kind of get categorized. But me being 6 foot, 190 when I got here, I could have kind of gone either way. I could have put on a little bit more muscle, got a little heavier, and been a jack man, and I could have just kind of stayed where I'm at and been a tire changer, but been on the taller side of the spectrum of tire changers. And honestly, I knew some people in the sport, and I kind of was who makes the most money. And typically at the time when I was getting into it, tire changers had the higher salary of the 4 positions. So that's kind of the one I went for. If you have to learn one, you might as well.
And why did they consider that a higher skill position? Because you were working like 5 lug nuts at the time?
Yeah, it was a higher skill position, and just the difference between like the top 2% of tire changers on pit road and like the middle of the road tire changers on pit road, there was a very large discrepancy. So the better you could be at it, just like in any business, you're going to set yourself apart.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that way anymore. The way pit stops have evolved, and we went from 6 to 5, or we went from 5 lug nuts to 1 lug nut. We went from 6 guys over the wall to 5 guys over the wall. And when we did a lot of that, we put a lot more workload on the jackman. So now the jackman has to be not only a jackman, but he also has to be a tire carrier. So he has a lot more on his plate. So he picked up more work.
What was the rationale for NASCAR to take a guy off?
I don't know if I have the correct answer for it, but kind of the answer that we all were told, or the kind of what we thought was, they're taking one more person off of pit road, so that way there's one less person out there to get injured. They deemed it a safety concern to get one more individual off of pit road. How much of that is probably true? Probably not. I don't know. Some of it was also, we as pit crew guys probably thought it was with this 6-man pit stop, we were reaching times that were very fast and that were not obtainable by every organization. And I think as a way to kind of reset the field, if you take one guy away, everybody has to figure out how to do this all over again. So everybody kind of like the bar gets set, and then everyone has to go from there again. It's not like some teams are here, and that the gap just kept getting further away. When everyone has to go back to figure it out, when you give everyone a new task, the bar gets reset for everybody. And then, the incremental getting better creates more parity, I guess. But it definitely did not do that. For someone like myself and the teams that I've been fortunate enough to be on in the last 5 years, what NASCAR did was make my job more valuable, which is great. And the division between the top 2% and the middle, 60% is wildly bigger, in my opinion. And it just means that much more.
Why is that? Why did it change it so much?
Because like in the past, if I want you to complete a task, regardless of what the task is, mowing a lawn, building a wall, just putting a house together, whatever it is, the more people that I give you to do that, the less skilled each individual has to be.
Just labor, basically.
It's just, yeah, like you can have someone who's like really highly skilled and someone who's not so highly skilled, and the average of those two, like the high skilled guy can help make up for the lower skill guy. But when you take away people, the more people I take away from that project, the people that you're going to want are the ones that are more highly skilled, the ones that are always on time, the ones that do the work at the highest level, because now they have to take on more work. And, you give a higher performing person more work, they're going to elevate to that. If you give a mid-tier worker more work, more things get left undone, more things get missed. So because they took away a person, everybody had to be a little bit better, because at the end of the day, we're racing the stopwatch. It's irrelevant what the other teams do around you, as long as you're racing the stopwatch. So the goal in pit stops has always been to be done as fast as possible and be done correctly. To do that, you want the highest skilled individuals you can get that operate at a 95% or higher capacity all the time.
Yeah, I think I remember when I first started watching NASCAR, like 25, 30 years ago. I was a northern kid, Michigan, and I knew a few guys that were into it, but it wasn't a huge sport like it is down the South. And then I came down here, and the difference in the pit crews, the way they look now versus the way they looked, 20, 25 years ago, they're just so athletic now, versus kind of, a lot of them were kind of good old boys 25 years ago.
Yeah. 100%.
Now everybody's an athlete out there.
Well, just back to the point, I was just making, if you can get somebody who is, has, a beer gut, not a lot of fitness, doesn't really take that care of themselves, you're always going to have outliers that can do the job and do it well. But at the end of the day, we're playing a sport. You want the most athletic individuals you can have on the team, people that take care of themselves, because, it's like changing the oil in your car. If you take care of yourself, you're going to be able to operate at a higher level. And teams understood that, just like anything else. Like if fitness didn't matter, you wouldn't have these freak athletes playing in the NFL all the time. You would just have your average Joes, where if I went and put on a pair of cleats and a helmet, I'd get demolished. I'd get depleted before the first kickoff. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I coached college football for 10 years, and I remember I came down to the University of South Carolina, I think in 91 or 92, and the guys were big, but we had linemen then who had like kind of big flabby stomachs, and there were a lot of guys that if you saw them on the street, you would characterize them as fat.
yeah.
And if you look at linemen today, the offensive linemen in the NFL that weigh 320 pounds, they look like tight ends today. Like their bodies have changed so much. They average 40 pounds more. They're more athletic. Their body composition is completely different. Just the way that people have trained in all the different sports has just elevated so much in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and even those offensive linemen that, you would consider, to not have a really low body fat percentage, the reason why they carry that extra weight is because it's a performance enhancer for them. It's
Right.
harder to get
to
get them moved. They have to have it. And, you watch a lot of them when they're done, they can shed that weight pretty easy because it is part of their job to keep that weight on while they're playing football, because it's an advantage for them. So it's not that it's not like you said, it's not you don't take the fattest kid in Pee Wee football and put him on the line. That's not how it kind of works in that upper echelon of the sport anymore. So it's the same thing in NASCAR. Like anytime you can get individuals that are fit, like no one's ever wished in any sport, in any endeavor, like I wish I was less fit. I wish I wasn't so in shape. I wish I wasn't so strong, like,
right.
There's use cases for things like, yeah, you're not going to get a 250-pound power lifter to get on a bike and ride the Tour de France, but just in general, in sports, especially the sport you're playing, no one wished they were less of anything. It's always that endeavor. How can I get better and better and better to provide for myself and my team and be a better athlete?
Yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, for me, the way that I found you was on YouTube. I have just started getting into archery and went down this archery wormhole, and I found a bunch of your stuff on YouTube. But your fitness level, like as I really have started to really get into archery, and like my big goal is to go on an elk hunt out west in 2024. Like the fitness level that is required to be out and to do Western hunts is really high, correct?
Yeah, it's definitely, it pays dividends to put in the time and, be strong. I feel like for me, it keeps me safer, because I know that if I get into a situation, I know I can probably get out of it because I got into it. But just
when you say get into a situation, what does that mean? Running away from a bear or trying to survive?
Oh God, I hope not.
Trying to survive a snowstorm for 3 days.
Just like, like if you get in, like I've done it before, like you hike in a little too far, you get in some deadfall and you need to find a way to get out. Like I'm not too worried, like besides just the general navigation, like I'm not worried, like I'm too far in. I don't know if I physically can get back out. Like I've gone too far. Like, that saying, like I've gone too far, there's no coming back. Like,
Right.
I don't feel like I can, because I take care of myself and because I'm fit, I can get a little deeper than somebody else and know I can still get whatever I get on the ground back out. But just being fit to go out there does pay dividends, because like for me, like here in North Carolina right now, I'm at 600 feet of elevation. And then if you're going to go hunt elk anywhere out west, you're looking at a minimum 3,500, maybe, up to 11,000 feet.
Before you went out there for your first, like, did you? I know some people get into hyperbaric chambers or some kind of thing where they like simulate elevation. Did you do anything like that before you went out there the first time?
I didn't. The only thing I did, like the things that you can do to help yourself go into elevation, was I made sure I was more than hydrated enough.
Hmm.
I've been eating correctly, and that like my VO2 system in my body, like I know I can have a high respiratory rate and still be able to consume oxygen and expel CO2. And then obviously the higher up you get, the less you have of that, the better your system is, the more cardiac, you know, the more in shape you are, I guess, with your cardio, it helps. So for me, wasn't a shift where I just went like only worried about cardio, because like strength does play a factor, like leg strength, to be able to carry your pack and walk around. Um, but there was like, I made sure when going into it, I was in probably the best shape I could be, because that was the biggest buffer I had, to fight altitude sickness or just not have a good experience. Like if you're not in great shape, you know, I didn't want to limit myself by not being in great shape, being I can't go in that extra mile that I can hear that bugle because it's too far, or that hill's too high. I never wanted my fitness to be the limiter of it. And that's always been my goal, is to not let my physical fitness be the thing that's like, I won't be able to go because I don't have time or because I get cliffed out. Not look at a hill and be like, it's a little too high and I don't feel like doing that.
Yeah, I was watching something on YouTube the other day, and it was like a guided hunt with Ralph Ramos, and he had a guy who was a Major League Baseball player, and like he shot his bull like the first day in the afternoon. I mean, they had gone into
Perfect.
this. There was like they were in the rut, and there was like 6 bulls all over the place. It was like a shooting gallery, but from everything I've looked at, public land hunting, completely different animal, right? I mean, you are out there freaking grinding, trying to find them to begin with, and then once you find them, they're moving. It's not the same deal.
Yeah, they're definitely pressured animals. You know, public land gets hunted a lot, and it's not impossible to get it done on public land. It's just the pool of people that are hunting on public land is a lot larger than, a ranch or maybe a guided hunt that has permission to hunt on, private property. So you're not only competing with the animal to get, they want to stay alive, and you're trying to, kill that animal. So like it's a big cat and mouse game, but you're also competing against the other hunters in the woods to get into a position, maybe you might have to go a little deeper than them because, you know, Tom and Jack only want to go a mile off the road. But if you
Yeah.
can get that mile and a half off the road, then the elk are less pressured because they've been pushed in a mile and a half, because everyone kind of gets to that 1 mile buffer off of the road or off of a trail. And that I will say, the further you go in, the more of a realization you have when you sit there and think about it. You're like, oh man, I'm 2.5 miles away from anything. Like that's a long ways. In my opinion, like I feel like it's a long way. I'm not one of the guys that goes 14 miles deep because I don't have the time to do that.
I watched a hunt the other day, and they were 6 or 7 miles in, and killed a bull at dusk, and didn't have the stuff they even needed. They literally, they quartered it out. I think they got it back to the truck, and then they had to come back, and they went back out at first light, and the other dude got one.
Oh,
So they were literally had 2 of them within about 14 hours that they had to quarter out, haul out, and they had to make, I think they made, I'm trying to think how many. I think the first time they had to make 2 trips, and then the second time they ran into a couple other guys that helped them, but I was just like the stamina and the fitness that required, just but like you sit there and talk about all it takes to get there, but like that is an insane amount of work.
that's what people like to say, right? Like after the animal is down the ground, that's where the work begins.
Yeah.
That's where up until that point, it's always, oh man, I can go chase that a little further. I can go over that next ridge because it's that excitement of. I feel like when you're a kid and you're in a car and your parents are driving you somewhere, it always takes, you know, you always seem like it's faster to get to the location than it is, and it takes forever to get home because like
Yeah.
you're so anticipated to get to where you're going to go. Like time goes by really fast, and you're paying attention, and you're like, it's a lot easier to go after that. But once it's over, and now you have to like haul all that meat back, it just seems like every mile is 2 miles. Every step feels like it's inches shorter than the one you just took, and it's like, did we really come this far in? Like, what were we thinking?
The guys that I've talked to that do it have basically said, like, you just got to know, like, you got to embrace the suck. Like, that's a thing. And you can't even sit there and think, oh, this is like, it's gonna suck. And that's just part of the fun of it, knowing that not very many people can do that. Which, interestingly enough, I kind of talked about your YouTube thing like a little bit ago. The way I found you, other than a couple, like I saw you doing some archery reviews because I was looking at bows, but you did a couple years ago. It was your first Western hunt, I think. You literally soloed out to Colorado, I think, right? On your first hunt you just went out there by yourself and did a public land with an over-the-counter tag.
Yeah, solo DIY.
Like, let's just freaking go.
Let's pick up the tag and took off.
Let's just go. Like, forget no guide. Like, I'm not going out with a buddy. I'm just going all in. Let's like freaking dive in.
Oh, I mean, if I had the financial resources to hire a guide at the time, and if I had a buddy who wanted to go, I would gladly have taken some of that. But
how much are guided hunts anyway? Like, I haven't even started looking at that. Those like, are they ridiculous?
They can range from a couple thousand to in the well over $10,000. I think some of that depends on what you're getting. I know you can hire guides that will come on public land with you and do the calling and kind of be the guy who has the experience and hopefully get you into an opportunity because they know the lay of the land, they know the elk herd, they kind of know that area, which is a huge advantage.
I was going to say that seems like a little more interesting to me than to go, and maybe I'm sure if I shot a huge bull, I would not be saying this, but going to a place where everything kind of is easy. That I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've kind of used to doing everything hard, but that seems like it's a little bit less challenging.
Yeah, not every guided hunt comes with a 10,000 acre ranch that's got elk around every tree.
Yeah.
You can pay for those experiences and you can pay for those opportunities, and they're going to cost you more, but you can also save some money and hire a guide to go on the same public land that I had access to where I was, to come and be your tour guide of the area, for lack of, your guide of
right. And do the calls and everything. So
yeah, they do the calls.
Yeah, go ahead.
They would do, they would call for you. They understand the lay of the land. They understand where these elk and these herds typically migrate, where they're going, where the food sources is, where the water is. So it will definitely help shorten the learning curve, and make it maybe a little bit more of a better experience. But going by yourself and just figuring it out, that's rewarding and enough. That was rewarding for me to be able to find elk, get on them and be like, this isn't impossible.
Right. I was going to say, right. When I was watching your, the one from 2 years ago, you got into it. What was it, the first day or the second day you got into them?
It would have been the first morning. I flew in, got in, hiked in the woods. And then that first morning I woke up in Colorado. I was on elk, in elk.
And you were probably like, okay, game on. Right.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, this is
it.
This is it. Like, I'm like, oh, this is day one. Man, I got even if I don't connect today, I got 4 more days of this.
I've got one.
Kind of didn't quite count my chickens before they hatched, but definitely,
you were getting there.
I definitely felt confident that it was going to happen, which it didn't. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So for people that haven't done it yet, and even for obviously I haven't done it yet, so I'm trying to learn as much as I can about all this stuff. But I think you think you're in the middle of them, and as long as you can kind of keep track of them, that you can stay in them. What happens there?
They are much larger, and
They cover a lot of ground.
they cover a lot of ground really fast. There's a reason why they like a bull elk weighs 5, 6, 7, 800 pounds. It's because they have a lot of muscle and a lot of leg muscle. And when they want to go up a hill, that's 15 degrees for them. It's like me walking out my driveway to get in my car. Like it doesn't take any effort. They just go up. And for someone like you or me at 9,000 feet of elevation, we can't process that kind of, oxygen deprivation and be able to traverse a 15-degree incline like they can. So trying to keep up with a herd is really, really hard to do, if not almost impossible, just to like stay within, on them the whole time. Usually you're trying, like, at least for me, what I was trying to do is I was trying to figure out the terrain and, kind of the features in that area, like bedding, food, water, and trying to like get in the corridors where they should be coming through, to
Figure
make
out if
that
they have
a little,
pattern, like a watering pattern and then a bedding pattern.
Yeah, because I mean, elk, like whitetails, like I'm sure a lot of people have either hunted whitetails or know someone who hunts whitetails, and whitetails can be very patternable. They always need food, they need water, and they need bedding. And if you can figure out those three for a particular whitetail, chances are he's going to do about the same thing all the time unless he gets pressured. So elk are they're in that same cervid family, so they'll do about the same thing unless they get pressured. And if they get pressured, they move and then they reestablish a routine wherever they get, where they feel unpressured. So
Right.
if you can get on them and not like bump them out of an area, they should do about the same thing, or go through the same patterns, same times a day, typically, as in like a large macro scale of things.
So you got on them quick, and then what happened?
Got on them quick.
Did you ever get a shot?
I came close. Being the guy who is filming, calling, and the shooter, it's not easy. It's probably not the easiest thing to do. And the very first time is worry about getting a shot with your camera and a shot with your bow. I had called.
Would you do it again the same way? Would you do the camera thing again, or would you just go out and hunt?
I'd probably do the camera thing again. I think I'm a little, I don't know if carrying the extra weight kind of sucked, but I don't really think the camera is not what made me didn't get that shot. It was the calling setup and not having the experience, and being set up incorrectly is what caused me not to get that shot. I had set up, I called this bull over this ridge, away from these cows, and he got to within 25 yards of me, but I needed him to take about 5 or 6 more steps, which was about 10 yards past this, I don't know, this cluster of trees and branches.
You were in a bunch of deadfall, weren't you? Or was that later?
No, I mean, that was kind of in where I was. It was a burn with a bunch of deadfall in it. And I had a bunch of branches and trees that were kind of in the way. If he would have taken another handful of steps, he would have been broadside at 20, 25 yards. And yeah, I would have felt
spooked
confident.
Or what happened that you couldn't get him in there? You just couldn't.
He just.
How did you get? Did you get him over with a bull call, or what did you get him over with?
I did some cow calling and then some bugling.
Okay.
Every time I'd bugle, he'd bugle back, but it didn't seem like he was coming in. So adding a few more cow calls in there kind of made it seem like, hey, a bull is taking some cows away from this, his harem. So he wants to come over and, confront that bull. And I got him to come over the ridge. The wind was right. Everything was right. But when he came up over, like I said, we were in a burn. So he kind of came over and he could see that, like, for a while in this burn that he didn't see the elk he wanted to see. And that's where my setup was wrong. I should have been a little closer to the ridge. I should have been on the left side of these trees where they were falling and not quite behind them. Because when he came up over the flat and, kind of looked around because he got sucked right up over to it, he didn't see what he wanted to see. And I can understand now that he didn't want to walk another 50 yards because he didn't have to, because he could see all of that. So if I
So
would have set up a little closer,
you need to, like, you're basically saying you should have brought him into an area where he couldn't see as well, so that he had to continue to go and explore.
I should have split the distance from where I knew he was before I called. I
Okay.
was too far away. So, like, imagine coming up over this plateau, and being able to see a couple hundred yards in front of you. You're only going to come up over it as far as you need to see what you need to see. I was a little too far back. I was trying to drag him 100 yards up over this plateau instead of 20 yards.
That makes
So,
sense. I got you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just like,
It's all like, you learn so much, don't you? I mean, again, I haven't been out there, but everything I've read and listened to is just like, there's just so much to learn.
yeah, I was just caught up in, I would call and he would call back. So, like, for someone who's never called elk before, like, it's a big game of Marco Polo. Like, I can call and he calls me back. Like, this
That
is
would be
amazing.
juice.
Like, so it's hard not to sit there and just consistently just hammer that bugle tube, because you're like, I make this noise and he makes that noise. Like, it's everything that all the YouTube videos show. It's just, setup wise, it's one of those things. Like, if you had a guide, he could have helped, put you in a better setup situation. But yeah, I mean, just experience. You got to get it somehow.
So how was being out there all by yourself? Like, I know you got a lot of weather that first night, I think. What was that like, just outside of the hunting piece, just being out there completely alone?
For me, that's something I like. I spent a lot of time in my youth in Boy Scouts, got all the way up through, became an Eagle Scout. So being in the woods, I feel fairly comfortable. It's not something it's not like I had to learn how to be in the woods and hunt at the same time. Like, I'm comfortable in the woods. But the first night I was there, set up camp. Weather looked like it was going to be fine. Maybe a little bit of sprinkle, but nothing bad. And the one thing I learned out west is that it doesn't matter what the weatherman says. The weather's going to do what the weather does. And we got a couple inches of snow, thunderstorms, hail. When you have a thunderstorm at 600 feet of elevation, it's not bad. Like, you can hear the thunder and it booms and it rolls and you're like, oh man, that's cool. When you're at 9,000 feet and you're a lot closer to those clouds.
Is it that big of a difference?
It's a lot different.
Is it?
Yeah. It is. It like rattles your rib cage. It's just, the lightning's brighter. Everything is just a little bit more. You're like, oh, I'm way closer to this than I want to be.
Just a little spookier.
Yeah. Just a little bit more of like how far am I back here again? What? Oh man. Yeah.
How far were you, like a mile and a half in, or how far in were you?
I was just over 2.5.
Okay. So you were in there a little bit.
I was just over 2.5 as the crow flies. So it was probably a little bit more like 3 and change, walking, zigzagging, and kind of traversing. But I had some stuff I e-scouted on the map that I thought was really good. It had food, water, cover. And it was one of those, like, if there's going to be elk, they're going to be in here. They were. So it was definitely the right place to be, but it was definitely a large obstacle I took on day one. It was a little bit more daunting than I kind of thought it would be. And the weather just didn't help, but it was, in hindsight, I would have done it again. 100%. I would have gone, I would give, if I did not draw a tag this year, I would have gone back to Colorado and gone right to that same unit, right to that same pin, and tried to get on those elk again.
So what did you draw this year?
Right now, I have an elk and mule deer tag in Montana. I was unsuccessful in New Mexico. Wyoming draws not out yet. I'm just getting ready to put in for Utah. That draw comes up in, as we're recording this, 3 more days. So trying to get in on that.
So you can still put in for Utah right now?
Yes. Up until the 27th.
No, that's a late application period.
Yeah, it used to be earlier, and then this year they moved it back. I don't remember the reasoning, but it's a good thing they did, because I kind of forgot about Utah because I was focused on a lot of other things going on this month.
And so will you hunt all of them if you pull multiple tags, or is it going to be like pick your best one and go? Because I know obviously you're racing a bunch.
Yeah. I have tags that are priority. Like if I would have drawn New Mexico, that trumped all my other tags. I would have gone to New Mexico for the rut. Montana is a really cool state where you can go there for archery. If you draw a general tag in Montana, it's a rifle tag. It's for the later season, but you can go purchase an archery stamp essentially, and then you can use that tag to hunt during archery season. So if you are unsuccessful during archery season, you can just come back with a rifle and hunt off that same tag in the general units.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they give you a lot of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Wyoming's the same way. There are some units or some tags that are archery specific. That's if you draw it, that's the only thing you can hunt. But if you draw their general tag, you can hunt during archery season with the archery stamp. And then if you're unsuccessful, come back during rifle season and still hunt with that tag. So like if I would have drawn New Mexico, that would have been bow only, and it would have been for a 1 week block. And that one would take priority because I can always go back in November in Montana with the rifle and, hunt then. So yeah, just kind of wait for them to come in, and whichever one has the better opportunity or fits into my schedule better, I'll go. But I don't see myself not hunting on it. Like I don't see myself burning a tag, like not going at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to be in the same place you are right now next year. So I'm going to be excited to hear what happens on that one. Obviously, after you go out and get your hunt in this fall, let's have you back because I'm hoping that we're going to have a big bull story next time we have a conversation. Where can people find you on social media?
So I'm predominantly on Instagram at Jeff Cordero _, and I'm on YouTube. You can just search Jeff Cordero, and I should pop right up.
Yeah, great content. If you're, looking for reviews on products, really good bow reviews. It's got a lot of good videos on citing some stuff in. It really helped me a ton as I started to get going and I was researching product and kind of learning about the basics about all this stuff. There's so much to learn, but I really love your content and really appreciate you taking the time to be here. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe. Give us a like. Thanks for being with us, Jeff. We appreciate you, brother.
Dude, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, I love it. Talk to you after you get that bull next fall.
For sure. I cannot wait.
See you, man.
See ya.
You're still here?
Thanks for listening to the Do Not Go Quietly podcast.
It's over.
With Eric Wilson.
Go home. Go. You're still here?
Thanks for listening to the Do Not Go Quietly podcast.
It's over.
With Eric Wilson.
Go home. Go.